What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we're going to continue with our midseason predictions here in the Big 12. And we're going to start off with Baylor. We're going to show you the teams that I haven't shown you earlier in the week. So we have them beating Liberty, Texas, San Antonio, and Duke, and they lose all three of those games. This Baylor team is still looking for their first win of the season, and we're only going to give them one. We're going to give them a win over Kansas, but we're going to change the rest of these to losses. I've got Baylor losing every game the rest of the way except for Kansas. So a 1-11 season for Baylor, a season that they are going to want to forget. So how about the next team here? We've got Iowa State. And so far we've missed a couple of games. Had them beating Iowa, losing to Oklahoma. That one goes the other way. And so overall record, we're still correct with Iowa State. Look at the second half of the season. I had them losing every single game the rest of the way. But we are going to make at least one change, and yeah, just one game. We're gonna give them Baylor, so we have them beating Baylor and losing 7 games. So they just miss out on a bowl game. I'm not completely sold just because they beat Oklahoma, but I do think they compete in some of these games, especially like Texas Tech, a game that they might can win. Kansas State as well. So I do think a bowl game is possible for them. Kansas did not beat Central Michigan or Ohio. I gave them too much credit. I had them winning those two games. They did not win those two games. And if you look ahead to the second half of the schedule, yeah, I'm not really going to change anything at all. I still think they lose every single game in the Big 12. So I got them losing all of these games here on the right side. And finish, 1-11. So typical Kansas football. They're already looking ahead to basketball, I'm sure, there at Kansas. How about a team that's been a major disappointment, especially, to me? I thought they were going to be a lot better, and that is Kansas State. They have lost the game to Vanderbilt. They lost to TCU at home. I had them, I had high expectations for this team, and they have not lived up to them. It really started with that Vanderbilt game, and so you look ahead to the second half of the season. I had them just losing 2 games, and now we're going to have to give them some more losses. We're going to give them a loss on the road at Texas Tech. We're also going to give them a loss to West Virginia at home. So that is going to be what? 7 losses, which means I've got Kansas State missing out on a bowl game. And that Iowa State game is going to be tough for them as well. They could very well finish 9th place in the Big Ten. That Iowa State game could decide that. Texas Tech, a pleasant surprise here. They've only lost 2 games so far. They beat Arizona State and Houston. I didn't really have them winning those games. Nick Shimonek has been very good for this team. They played a little bit better on defense than I expected them to. I still got them beating Iowa State, but you look ahead to the rest of these games, we are going to give them a couple more wins. We're going to give them a win over Kansas State and a win over Baylor. So that's going to put them at 7-5, which is much better than what most people expected for this team. I think they finished pretty strong, but then they do lose those last 2 to TCU and on the road at Texas. Texas, that could be a winnable game, though. They could have a chance to win that one and get to 8-4. How about West Virginia coming up next? We've only missed 1 game so far. I had them beating Virginia Tech. They couldn't quite get it done. I had them losing to TCU. They did lose to TCU, and I had them winning the rest of their games, and that's exactly what they've done. If you look ahead now to the second half of the schedule, and I had them only winning 2 games here, but we're going to make some changes. We're going to give them a win over Baylor. We're going to give them a win over Oklahoma State. We're going to give them a win over Kansas State. But now I think they slip up in that game against Texas. Texas, I think, is the team that is going to be playing pretty good football by the end of the year. So I've got them losing that game, and they finish overall 8-4 with 3 losses in the Big 12. So here are our Big 12 standings, and we're going to see who gets into the championship game, and it's going to be TCU versus Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State wins the tiebreaker over Oklahoma because of the head-to-head matchup. Texas in there at 6-3. West Virginia also 6-3. Texas Tech 4-5. And then Kansas State, Iowa State, Baylor, and Kansas all miss out on a bowl game. I think Iowa State could pass Kansas State. And I said Kansas State could be 9th. I meant 8th because they're going to be ahead of Baylor. So preseason, our picks to go to the Big 12 championship game were Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. We're going to still have Oklahoma State in there. In the preseason, I actually had Oklahoma winning that game. So obviously that's not going to happen. If they don't get to the Big 12 championship game, which I still think they have a chance. So we're going to cross them off. And again, we still have Oklahoma State in this game, but instead of playing Oklahoma, we have them in a rematch against TCU. They were really beat down by TCU. A big win for TCU early in the season. Can they get some revenge here in the Big 12 championship game? Can they possibly cost TCU a spot in the playoffs? Because with the one loss, you have to figure TCU wins this game and they are in the playoffs. So what happens in this game? I like Oklahoma State to win it. I think they get the rematch. They play, they learn from their mistakes in that first game. They bounce back. They win the rematch, and they win the Big 12 championship game. This costs TCU a spot in the playoffs more than likely. We're in our next video. We're going to go through and see our playoff predictions. So stay tuned for that, and you can see exactly who I have in the playoffs and who I have winning the national championship. But Oklahoma State is my pick to win the Big 12. I know they got that loss to TCU, but I think they bounce back nicely. I still get Oklahoma at home, so I've got them getting it done here in the Big 12. What do you think? Leave a comment down below. Who do you think is going to win the Big 12? That's going to do it for this video. Again, the playoff prediction video coming up just in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. And stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports YouTube channel.